Hello everybody! Today I will be showing you my drawing process for drawing a portrait of a girl's face. This will be almost like a tutorial of how I draw faces every single time. I'll also be giving tips on certain parts of the process, so let's get into it. Here are the supplies I use. I'll use a 2B and an HB pencil to put down as a base color for the face, as well as for lighter shadows. I'll use a 4B and a 6B pencil for darker shadows. For this piece in particular, I used pens and black Posca markers to make the hair. You can use a white Posca marker for the highlights on the eyes as well as the hair. And you obviously use the blending stump to blend out all your colors and to make it look really smooth. Moving on, I now created my sketch. This process becomes much easier when looking at a reference photo. The reference photo I used for this drawing helped me get the proportions right and made it look a little more realistic, though it's a little stylized still. It's also pretty helpful to draw facial guidelines in order to place the nose, mouth, and eyes. Just make sure that you sketch the guidelines lightly so that it's much easier to erase later on. So once I decided that I was happy with my sketch, the very first thing I did was start to shade the nose, because I always find that part to be the most difficult, and if I'm being honest with you all, usually I tend to make the nose look flat, but here I feel like I've made it a little more decent. So I'm not 100% sure how I did that. I guess what I did differently this time is that I looked at a reference. So yeah, I'm not really an expert on drawing the nose, and I feel like I don't really have the best advice for it, except just look at a reference. It will help you better understand where to put all the shadows and the highlights, and it'll just make your nose appear more 3D and realistic. So yeah. Then after I did the nose, I went ahead and did the eyes, and basically all I did was I colored in the pupil a light color with my 2B pencil, and then around the iris I slowly started adding darker shadows, and lastly I added my highlights and sort of just cleaned the eyes up a bit. Also, a little tip is to color in the corneas, and don't make the eye completely white. Add some shadows to make it appear it has more depth. The reason I say not to make the eye completely white is because it's important to make sure that the whites of the eyes don't clash with the little highlight on the pupil, and it'll also make the highlight on the pupil stand out a lot better. Adding eyelashes is also useful to make your eye appear more realistic, but I secretly didn't add them because I'm not good at drawing eyelashes and I didn't want to ruin the eyes that I worked on already. So yeah, adding eyelashes will definitely make it appear more realistic. So do that. Next, I did the lips, which was just a matter of building up the shadows layer by layer and also adding subtle highlights on the lower lip. To add depth, darken the mouth hole and add texture onto the lips. Regarding the eyebrows, I built them up using a pen. Next, I started shading the rest of the face, which was definitely the trickiest part. I started by shading around the eye area so that I can have something to connect the nose bridge to. My advice is to darken the eyelids and add a highlight around the cornea to make the eyes pop. Also note that the eyebrows would also cast a shadow, so add that too. The shading at first will look muddy and messy, just trust the process and you'll get it, okay? Now I'll usually work on the forehead, which it's just building up some shadows. And then I sort of just kind of worked my way down the face towards the chin. And here's the only video I recorded of me doing a time lapse of me coloring the skin, just so you guys can get a visual idea of how I do it. And basically you just put down a base color with your 2B pencil, and then you slowly start layering and adding to it, and You can also blend it out with your blending stump, obviously, as you can see, that's what I'm doing in the video. You can clean stuff up with your eraser, and the end result will look really cool. Now here's me working on the chin and the lower part of the face, and basically, if you take a look at the eyebrows, you'll notice that they're done in pen. This was to make it stand out from the rest of the face, which was done in graphite. I just thought that it would look pretty cool, and it adds a pretty nice touch to the drawing overall. I used my 6B and 4B pencils to add the little blush on the face, just to give it more depth and a little more realism as well. And after doing this, you sort of just blend it out and add your finishing touches. So now you've finished the face and we start on the hair. I simply made an outline of how I wanted my hair to look, and then I sort of filled it in with some Posca pens. Go slow on this part when you fill in the hair, because you can accidentally mess up and end up ruining your drawing. I made the highlights by smudging white Posca marker over certain parts of the hair, and then adding strands over it. After adding the finishing touches, you are all done with your drawing. Here are the final results. I hope you found this video somewhat helpful, and thank you so much for watching.